Well, hello and welcome again to Gunster's View from the Top. I have the great privilege of welcoming the treasurer of the great state of Florida, our chief financial officer, Jimmy Patronis. Welcome, my friend.
Good to see you, Senator. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so privileged you would take some time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today.
Well, I was just admiring. You've got an amazing view, and I can understand the theme of your show. So again, honor to be with you, and look forward to catching up.
Let me give our viewers a little background on you, and then I want to talk to you about what you do in your current position. But
Sure.
Jimmy is the former state representative in the Florida legislature, serving the Florida Panhandle and all of Florida. Former member of Florida's Public Service Commission, a restaurateur, husband to Katie and two great boys, and just a fantastic public servant. So, Jimmy, I'm privileged you would be here with us. Most people probably don't know what the chief financial officer does for the state of Florida, all the hats that you wear, what your responsibilities are. Could you give us a little background on what that job entails?
Sure. So again, I think there is a lot of truth to that. I'm only the fourth CFO in the history of the state of Florida. Prior to this, if you have to go back almost 20 years, we had a seven-member cabinet in Florida. That seven-member cabinet, was a very strong cabinet. At one point, you had a strong cabinet. You had a weak governor. The governor was committed to just one term. So we had a comptroller. We had an elected treasurer / insurance commissioner. So you had all these different bodies went together. About 20 years ago, the Constitution Revision Commission, we did some blending, and we went from a seven-member cabinet to a four-member cabinet. So the chief financial officer of the state, I wear a bunch of different hats. I'm the state fire marshal. That's kind of a good trivia question. But, I regulate the funeral home industry. I license every insurance agent in the state of Florida. My office also does all insurance fraud. So we run an insurance help hotline. That's 1-877-MY-FLCFO. Got to plug it. And then, through the roles that we have at the cabinet, there's a number of joint. Florida's unique. Florida's really the last state in the union that has a cabinet that has cabinet agencies that are reporting to the cabinet, not just directly to the governor, and still operates. So it's an incredible job. I tell people affectionately, I get to be the state's business manager. I balance the checkbook every night. I'm also a trustee. If there's an invoice that is to be paid in the state of Florida, that bill's gonna have my check's gonna have my signature on it. We run a transparency website, so everything that's come into the procurement process is there and available for the public to look at. And I wish I could take credit for that, but I had a great predecessor, Jeff Atwater. He was, very, very forward thinking, and that is again one of the tools that we use in order to ensure that taxpayers of the state of Florida understand exactly where their dollars go. In more recent times, we are still dealing with COVID-19 and the challenges with that right now. The CARES Act was passed by Congress. Almost $6 billion came to the state of Florida. So I've got $6 billion of CARES Act funds that are sitting in my checking account right now. Some challenges about spending those dollars, but what do we do with it? We're investing it. So we've just in just the last few months, we've picked up over $41 million in interest alone, on those dollars as we are navigating this, pandemic of uncertainty that we've had to face over the last, 7 months. So anyway, it's a great job. And anyway, just thrilled to be able to join y'all here today.
Well, in managing the financial house for the state of Florida, where we spend more than $90 billion a year, such an important job, right? That someone's paying.
Yes. Well, and it's more concerning when we're incredibly dependent on tourism in the state of Florida. It's over 70% of our sales tax, is over 70% of our revenue, and we don't have a state income tax. We've got a low tax climate in Florida. We're a very hospitable place to relocate to. But as we have seen, a catastrophic hit to the state's tourism market. And when hotels aren't filled, they're not eating at restaurants, they're not renting cars, they're not flying on airplanes, and all that ripple effect. So thank goodness over the last 10 years, we've had some great stewardship where we have been paying down a lot of debt. As we were coming out of the foreclosure crisis, we were able to emerge paying down debt, saving money, cutting taxes. So we were in a pretty good financial place right now to take the hit what COVID has done. Now, but in addition to that, we have a $1.4 billion rainy day fund. It's called the Budget Stabilization Fund. Those dollars still haven't even been touched. So again, we're paying our bills. We're moving forward. revenues are higher than estimates were predicted by the Revenue Estimating Conference. Department of Revenue is providing us some good information. It's not, it's not pre-COVID information, but
Right.
again, it's much better than a New York, California, New Jersey, Illinois, you name it.
And you mentioned the CARES Act money that's sitting in your accounts that you're investing and we're gaining return on. Have we gotten an indication from Washington yet what we can spend that money on?
So that's been the contention, the bone of contention. I mean, you've been able to work across the aisle when you were in Washington, and whether it be fighting for access to the resource with snapper fishing or what. I mean, there was always a lane that you were able to see that the people needed, their needs being met. The CARES Act is no different. With the CARES Act dollars, we have got all these dollars sitting in our account right now, but they're specifically programmed non-budgeted COVID-related expenses. So, as we start looking through our different programs of what is a non-budgeted expense that COVID could have affected, there's limited amount of ways those dollars can be used. So there's been outcry from the states to ask Congress to give us more flexibility. But as long as you've got, Nancy Pelosi calling Donald Trump morbidly obese, there's not going to be any type of consensus building and policy strengthening to address what the states need. Now, on the flip side, where we have been vocal and been pushing back, Illinois, New York, California, they're financial train wrecks. And this COVID downturn in their economy was more catastrophic to them than it was anybody else in the United States. So they're looking for a pure bailout. We've been asking for some flexibility, even heck, turn the CARES Act dollars we've got into a loan program. What we need is the same thing what our citizens in Florida have gotten. We've pushed over $16 billion in unemployment benefits. That's like a bridge loan. We have provided money to help people deal with the downturn until the economy comes back. That's the same thing the state of Florida would benefit from. But if we don't get that flexibility, the legislature will make the decisions that they have to make, just like they always do.
And you mentioned some of those other states, and I know you've been also, besides being a good steward of our money, you've been talking to those other states and businesses there saying, come to Florida. We're a much better option than being in New York, New Jersey. Tell us a little bit about your recruitment efforts for businesses coming to Florida.
Sure. So, I'm in constant promoting mode. I grew up as you pointed out, I was in the restaurant business 30 years of my life. So I'm constantly into recruiting customers to come eat at my restaurant. And I'm constantly focused on making sure the customer is taken care of so they become a repeat business, contributor to our business. It's no different than what I'm doing now at the state. I can't deprogram how I've been hardwired. So, I love to pick up stories where, Governor Gavin Newsom is, shutting down Tesla and not allowing Tesla to build cars, as right now, if you talk to your car dealers right now, they've had an amazing year. They've had such an amazing year that they have no inventory on their lots. And when activist governors from Democratic states have shut down production and not allowing people to go back to work, even when you're implementing CDC guidelines, Department of Health guidelines, temperature checks, all those things, it's had a crippling effect on the ability for small businesses to recover with the challenges that they've met. So, whenever we see, a boneheaded call by another governor in another state, to me, that's just an opportunity for us to call them out. We sent out a video earlier this week, and I don't think, unless you were living under a rock, you saw the civil unrest that happened in downtown Chicago, and you had so many retailers that have decided, we're not opening back up. It's going to be a little while. We're going to sit tight. And the thought process was, well, they got insurance anyway. What's the big deal? I told my team, I said, find every headquarters that's based in Chicago, and then we're going to shoot them a little video and a little invitation note. And I'm going to tell them, I'm going to be their realtor. I'm going to go walk them around anywhere in the state of Florida they want to go, and let them know what we have to offer, because it's obvious,
Fantastic.
Chicago and Illinois doesn't appreciate them. So,
yeah. It's great.
It's fun.
And, what's wonderful about America is we have federalism and people can vote with their feet, right? And move here like so many have. So I love that you're
900 people a day.
That's right. Even with all these challenging times.
Yeah.
Last thing I want, I know your time is precious, but I do want to talk to you about Hurricane Sally and what's happened to Great Northwest Florida. And I feel like you guys got a 1-2 punch with Michael in 2018 and now Sally, and reading these stories and seeing the video of the Bay Bridge and these barges that have been crashing into things. I know you've been vigilant on that and trying to hold people accountable. Can you tell us what's happening? What's the state of affairs
Sure.
After Hurricane Sally, and how the area and the region can recover?
So we deployed urban search and rescue teams out of Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Tampa, and then we had crews that came down from Oklahoma and Tennessee. And these are like the Navy SEALs of firefighters. These first responders go house to house. So the upside of it, the positive of it, is we didn't see the type of loss of life or injuries from Sally that we saw from, say, Hurricane Michael. So the crews that came in, it was a short trip. An enormous amount of flooding, and this is what triggered and contributed to the damage to the bridges, because the barges, broke loose and did, catastrophic damages to those bridges. So again, flooding came in very swiftly, but it also left very swiftly. So lots of water damage. There's going to be an enormous amount of flood claims, and this is, even though if your, bank does not require having flood insurance, the peace of mind that you get, because in this case of Pensacola, most of these claims will be flood related. And, this is the peace of mind you should have, the investment you should be making, and your single largest investment you'll ever make in your life. So all that is good.
Important point. Tremendously important point. Yeah. These hurricanes, we've seen them, it's not just they're going to rip through. Some of these hurricanes like Sally sit right over a region, and you don't have to be on the coast. You don't have to be in a floodplain, but if you get 12 inches of water in a couple hours, you're going to flood. So I think you make a really good point.
Well, and the groundwater system gets saturated, and the water stands, and standing water ultimately leads to flooding. But the people there, I was on the call today with FEMA. They're looking for living assistance in Pensacola. So we do, our job is we get up and we advocate to ensure that our citizens are getting the attention they deserve.
Well, thank you for doing that. Some of the most beautiful places in Florida, which I've traveled with you, are in Northwest.
Oh, yeah.
And I always tell my friends here from Southeast Florida, the prettiest beaches in not only Florida, but in America are in Northwest Florida, and great people, great communities. And I'm so proud and privileged that you do what you do for us as our CFO, but I'm also especially thankful that you come from that part of the state, because for so long it hasn't had a voice. So just really grateful for all the good work that you do.
Well, you're kind. I tell you, thanks for being so accessible, and really, whether I've ever told you this or not, you've mentored me in a lot of ways, and I appreciate your demeanor and how kind you are to be so generous with your time, especially as a young legislator, as a former chief of staff to a sitting governor who you've had such a really an incredible career. Thank you for what you're doing to pay it forward.
Well, thank you, Treasurer Patronis, and to all of our guests. This has been Gunster's View from the Top, and we'll see you next time.